lady.
Hi.
I know, that was end of the day sigh. I know that one.
You've been traveling, right?
Yeah, I have actually literally just walked into my hotel room. I logged on the computer. I got my glass of wine. And I got to tell you my sketchy, I can't believe I just did this, but I went to the hotel's under renovation. I'm at the Westin on Fort Lauderdale Beach. And I went to the bar, which was the pool bar, and they only had wine in plastic cups. And I'm like, normally I could drink it out of a paper cup, but I had a long day. I want a wine in a glass. They're like, sorry, we don't have any glasses. I was like, what? It's a hotel. You don't have glasses? I'm sure there's a glass somewhere. They're like, nope. So I walked into someone else's function, like it was a work function. I walked in and I acted like I was part of their little conference, grabbed my wine and left.
That's awesome. That's crashing like a true pro.
Yeah, exactly. Conference crashing.
Yeah. Just act like you belong there, get the wine, and then slip out the back door.
Right.
Are you ready for us? Because we're going to grill you, girl. We're just going to ask you to open up all your insides and share them with our listeners.
Bring it on.
I love it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Amy, and this is Clever. Today, we're talking to interior designer and television personality Taniya Nayak. She was born in India and raised in Boston, Massachusetts. The daughter of an architect, she grew up surrounded by a creative family. Taniya attended Boston Architectural College for her master's in interior design and found her way to the TV screen before she even graduated.
She launched her namesake interior design firm in 2005, where she focuses on residential and commercial spaces, including new condo developments and restaurants like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. You may have seen her on shows like HGTV's Designed to Sell or House Hunters on Vacation, which is basically like my dream job.
Yeah.
Or Food Network series Restaurant Impossible. So let's talk to Taniya.
My name is Taniya Nayak. I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm an interior designer and a television personality. I love all of it.
Okay, so we like to start at the beginning. I know you live in Boston now. Is that where you grew up? Or talk to us about your early childhood and your family.
Yes, so Boston is home for me. I was born in India, so my parents came right over from India. We grew up in Boston, so that's always been home for me. It's nice because all the shows that we do, as you guys know, in the home decor or restaurant decor world, we get to just go to the sites. So we're always traveling. So I never had to leave Boston, really, other than like short stints here and there in New York and LA for 6-month period at a time.
So you were born in India. How old were you when you moved to Boston? And what was the reason for moving?
Yeah, so my dad's an architect, super brilliant guy. He went to MIT on a full boat scholarship, so that's what brought him here to Boston. And then I was actually conceived in the States, and they happened to be in India for a vacation visiting family, and I was born there. So that's why I was born there. But I grew up my entire life in Boston. But interestingly, I was the only non-white person in my entire school. So definitely had some challenges there growing, and not just non-white, but it was like Boston Irish, you know. So it was an interesting childhood.
Yeah, can you go into that a little bit? What is it like? Were people sort of fascinated by you, or did you feel like you were shunned, or how did that manifest?
Fascinated is not the word I would use. They were definitely not fascinated. It's funny, and I'll preface by saying this. I just went to my 25-year high school reunion over Thanksgiving, and I love everyone I went to high school with. Like I really had a great school as we got older, but when they're young, and this is so interesting because I remember when I used to watch Sally Jesse Raphael as a kid, and they would have like confront your bullies from your childhood. I used to actually imagine myself on that show confronting the bullies because it was so bad. I mean, and I don't fault them for it now. I more fault their parents, you know, for not teaching them about diversity at all. But they just didn't know any different. Like they didn't know any better. They really didn't have much diversity growing up. So they were pretty brutal. And I guarantee most of them, if not all of them, have no recollection of it. I think that looking back, they would never even recall the names that they called me or, you know, threatening to want to fight me every day after school just because I was not the same
So how did that affect you? Did you retreat or did you grow this really thick skin, or were you like defiant, like, I'm going to show you guys? Like, how did that come out of you?
Kill them with kindness. I mean, did it make you scrappy? Yeah. What happened?
Yeah, it's so weird. I think that I did take the kill them with kindness approach because I was a little bit of a pussy. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to get beat up. So I was really nice to them. And eventually as time went by, I got to junior high school, I became that cheerleader girl and, you know what I mean? Like started to gain a little more popularity as I got older. So people sort of forgot about it, but I'm like actually really grateful that it all happened. I never got beat up, which was good. Like it was always threats. So I never got in a fight, but I'm glad that it happened because I think it made me more compassionate as a person, and this TV world is funny, right? Like people get big heads really fast. It's just, that won't happen with me.
It blows my mind how that happens to some people. I'm like, what about your DNA just metamorphosized when you got a job in TV? It's so weird how different they become.
I mean, and honestly, like I look at big movie stars and they seem more down to earth than some of the personalities that you see on like cable television. And it's just kind of like, I don't know where or why.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And I think the entertainment industry tends to attract people who have kind of an innate insecurity or who kind of want a certain validation. And not everyone, definitely not everyone. You don't sound like one of them. But sometimes when they sort of seem to be getting that validation through a TV show, they just eat it up and let it change them.
Yeah.
But you mentioned becoming more popular and being a cheerleader in high school. And I saw that big mall hair tease bangs photo of you on Instagram. So what was your teenage experience like? Were there more challenges, or it sounded like things were getting a little bit better or more easy for you?
Well, first of all, that hair was my everyday. That was my everyday.
I was there, Aquanet, all over.
Totally. And I'm telling you right now, no wonder people didn't like me.
No, are you kidding? That hair took real craftsmanship. I can tell.
It was an art. Maybe that's where I first discovered my creativity.
It's definitely where I discovered mine. Artful haircuts, decorating my room, for sure.
Totally, right? So I grew up in the South Shore of Boston, and there was always a rivalry between South Shore and North Shore. And like my hair, I entered a high hair contest one time, like all.
No way!
Yeah, I won. I think
oh my gosh!
At the top of my head.
That's hilarious.
So wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. Do you know what I did to this poor ozone layer? It's my fault.
Besides the hair, did you seek out any creativity or design or art at that time?
Oh, totally. I was always in art classes. And I actually look back, and there was one art teacher, Mr. Pippy, who was so encouraging with a few of us that, he really put a lot of energy and time into fostering our art. I used to love to paint. And I know, Jaime, your paintings are just so spectacular. And it's something that I feel like I would love to go back to. I've let it go a bit. I used to sketch all the time. And now I've just, because of design and the precise nature of everything, I'm so adept to CAD and our generated like SketchUp, Revit, that kind of stuff. And I feel like the art has been lost a little bit of just freehanding and sketching and painting. And it's so freeing and it feels so good, but I'm starting to suck at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's an expressiveness and a gestural quality and a spontaneity that can happen with a brush stroke or with a pen or with something sort of, impromptu. And I'm sure you can relate whenever you make something or work for a client or do something as involved as interior design or architecture. There's so much planning that has to go into it that the spontaneity, you don't lose it completely, but it does drain a lot of the spontaneity away from that. And so having that really sort of loose creativity is just an exciting kind of juiciness to keep your life going with.
It really is. And I'm actually disappointed that the girls in my office, they all laugh that I come into the office after traveling somewhere and I have 5 cocktail napkins with different back bar builds or, feature walls or whatever that I've sketched out, and I hand it to them. I'm like, here you go. Let's put this in CAD and figure it out. And I wish I actually saved them all so that I could have made a little cocktail napkin book out of it, because they're the best. I don't know what it is about putting a pen to a napkin. That's magic.
It is magic. That's a great idea. You should save them from now on.
Yeah, I will.
So you talked about your father being a talented architect and going to MIT on a full scholarship, and he's a creative influence of yours. I mean, like, paint the picture for us for how you and your dad kind of interacted together and how you witnessed him doing his work that may have seeped into your psyche, formed an impression on you.
Yeah, well, my dad is the stereotypical Indian father, and they always say, the stereotypes are doctors, lawyers, engineers. And so he falls in that engineer category. Very strict growing up, very, very strict. Like, it's interesting that with the strict nature, when we were little, he used to give us for Christmas the how to doodle books, like how to draw cartoons, how to draw 3-dimensional boxes and pens and pencils and sketchbooks. That was always a Christmas present for us, which I loved. I loved it. But then as I got older, I wanted to follow his footsteps in architecture. I remember taking drafting classes in high school, and I was the only girl in the drafting classes, which didn't suck, and I really enjoyed that. And then he kind of steered me away from it. He had a small business at the time. So I think his mentality wasn't about the creative aspect of it. His mentality was owning a small business. And I know all three of us know how hard that is and how much time we dedicate to it. So his sort of focus and direction was coming from a small business owner and not from the creative architect side of it. And he was basically like, I don't know if this is a field that you should go into. And so I ended up doing my undergrad in business marketing because I was sort of steered away from the creative aspect of things. And in my mind, all I thought was, I need to do something creative. I'm an artist. Like, I need to do something creative. And the only thing in that business world that seemed like it would fit the bill was marketing or advertising or something in that world. So I ended up doing that. And I have no regrets about that because I learned so much about how to market even myself now, my business, my TV career, all of that stuff. But
oh yeah, I think all creatives should have some business and marketing education.
Right. Because our brains are just, it's two different sides, And yeah. So anyways, I ended up doing that for like 6 years. And I went to school. I worked at various different jobs. You guys, I was like a hearing aid technician for Miracle Ear. Like, there was not a job that really fit me, but I was bartending the whole time. So luckily I made a fortune bartending. So I never felt like I had to stay at a job that I hated, because I was still able to pull in some money because I was bartending. And so I finally reached this, like, I had this super Oprah aha moment. And I was lying in bed one night and I just thought, you know what? I am too fucking young to be doing a job that I hate for the rest of my life.
Amen.
Right? And I honestly, I feel like there's people that are 60 that should feel the same way. It wasn't that I really was young. Like, no one should be doing a job that they hate for the rest of their life. So the next day I woke up, like, I kind of told myself in the morning, I'm going to get up. I'm going to go to Boston Architectural College. I'm going to apply. And kids don't tell their parents when they get a belly piercing or a tattoo or something. Like, I didn't tell my parents that I was going to pursue a master's in interior design because I didn't want them to talk me out of it. I was like, I'm just going, I'm going to sign up. I'm going to pay for it myself. I'm going to do it. And that was that.
When did you tell them?
After I signed up, after I put the deposit down. And
were they supportive?
They were beyond supportive, because at that point my dad was like, girl, what are you going to do with your life? Like, you can't continue to bartend forever, and he was just like, I want to see you, do something. And then at that point, I think he was just so happy that I made a decision, like it was in my own head. It wasn't that I thought they weren't going to approve of it. I just didn't want them to talk me out of it like they had the first time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You didn't want to give them a chance to try and sway you or pressure you in another direction, because then you'd feel bad about it.
Yeah, I mean, they're my parents. I respect them so much. I love them so much, and don't want to give them the input anymore. But yeah, but it's so interesting. You make that decision in life, and all of a sudden, like, the world opens up, and you're suddenly doing what you love. And the first audition for a TV show came through my school website, like email. They sent a blast email to all the students saying that the guys, Scout Productions, that created Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, they were casting for a show for ABC Family, and they thought it would be a really good learning experience if all the students would go and audition. And so I was like, yeah, that would be fun. I thought that could be cool to learn how to audition. I was always like a dancer and cheerleader, so I wasn't afraid of getting up in front of people. And I went, and lo and behold, I got my first TV gig that way.
This is your big break.
My big break, exactly. And I had no idea. And so the funny thing, tying it back to Dad, was that because it was a show for teenagers, his peers didn't see the show. So he didn't get it. He's coming from a very old school mentality, education. And here I am doing a TV show, and he didn't get it. He just didn't get it, right? So it wasn't until I moved over to HGTV after that, and I was on Design to Sell, and his friends' wives and his friends, they all started seeing me on TV, and they would comment to him. And that's when it clicked for him. And then I got to be on Oprah, and that's when it clicked hard, and he was like, okay, all right, I get it. You're doing something that it's out of the, it is out of the box. It's not a typical career.
I have a similar story. I sort of chose a business route at first, and then it was not a great fit for me. So I ended up studying furniture design, but I was making art furniture, which, isn't really that commercial, and my parents didn't quite understand it. And then I ended up on TV, and my mom saw my show on an airplane.
What? Oh,
and elbowed the woman next to her and was like, "That's my daughter." And at that point, they were like, "Okay, now we're proud of you."
You totally get it.
Yeah.
And also, they could watch it on their TV at home all day long, but it's hard for them to wrap their heads around the fact that it's on everybody's TVs. It's on all across the country. So that was a big eye opener for them.
So what was it like getting your sea legs on those first few shows? It's not your typical first job out of school.
I found out after my first day on set on Knock First on the ABC Family show that they said to each other behind the cameras, "Oh boy, I think we might have made a mistake on this one." I had no idea. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't understand blocking or any of that. And I just was kind of talking to the teenagers, but I turned my back to the camera. So now I know. I get it. I get it now. It took me 15
Well, everybody
years.
learns on the job.
Yeah. True.
Did you enjoy those first few TV shows? Did you get the bug?
The bug is the biggest understatement. When the show ended, I was crying the ugly cry, hyperventilating, snot running down my face. I was like, I can't. And at the time, I didn't know what a manager was. I didn't know what an agent was. I got that show because I auditioned through my school, And so I thought that was the end for me. And I was so bummed, really, really hysterically crying after, we had done the show for 2 years. And then one of the producers sent me a Craigslist posting, and it said, looking for a young urban designer for a new edgy series on HGTV. And so I sent them the link. It was only a week after our show ended. I sent them the website link to our show, and I got a call 30 minutes later. They're like, "We would like you to do our pilot." And I was like, "Let's do it."
Wow.
It was called Freestyle.
That's awesome. So the rest is kind of history, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It's so funny. I bust my ass with my business so hard because I keep thinking this isn't going to last forever. This is, the TV thing's not, I can't put all my eggs in that one basket. And then it's it keeps going, which I'm so grateful for, but I have to figure out a balance in my life. I don't know how you guys do it. I really don't. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yes, because I am riding the blog wave, and I'm just when is this wave going to stop? Because I got to figure out what I'm going to do next.
It's not going to stop, girl. Not at the pace
Apparently
you guys
not.
And I am doing so many different things. Some of them are related and some of them aren't. And I'm juggling all these projects that are speculative or, financed or not financed or in development. And sometimes I just really want to punch a clock. I really just want to have somebody else make my decisions for me so I can take a nap.
I think one of the hardest things too is just getting burnt out on making decisions. I'm tired of making every decision about everything. And sometimes it's you just want to call somebody and be like, "What should I do?"
Yeah.
Yeah. Decision fatigue is my big issue too.
Decision fatigue. I love that. Hashtag decision fatigue. I do. Hashtag. I know. And then Amy, do you have kids? I know, Jamie, you do.
I do not have kids. No.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't either. I actually, Amy, I think you and I have such a mind-blowingly similar path in life. We're gonna need to carry our conversation on even further.
Yes.
I absolutely think so. But throw kids into the mix. And Jamie, I don't know how the hell you do it.
Every minute of my time is like pre-scheduled for something. I think the really important thing for me is every day I find something to do that's 100% for me or that's self-care related, because otherwise I go into like a quick spiral of like crabby aggression.
But how? So that's my question.
Yeah, I just set aside the time, and that's the time I need to dedicate to it. And I tell people I can't schedule a meeting at this time, or and I my husband is really supportive, and we balance our household and parenting duties 50-50 because we both have full-time jobs and we're both a parent. So it's a 50-50 thing over here.
And that's huge, though, the whole support thing. Yeah, because
absolutely.
I don't know what I would do if my husband was not supportive. I mean, I'm gone. When I was filming The Great Christmas Light Fight, I was gone for almost 6 weeks, nonstop. You have someone that's not supportive. It's really hard.
I dated musicians for a long time, like touring musicians, and it was kind of easy because they understood the travel schedule.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But then nobody was home, or we just pass each other in the night. And it was a really awkward, like never saw each other kind of situation, but at least we both understood it.
Right.
I don't know what's better. I mean, your husband is a restaurateur, correct?
Correct. Yes. And I think it's a great situation, actually, because he works like crazy too. He works so many hours, but he's actually not traveling for it. So in a way, it's a nice balance because someone is always home, and we just got our little pup, Flynn, our little guy. So Brian feels like a single parent.
But that does sound like a nice mix, because you've got one rock or the pillar of support that can kind of stay at home and hold down the fort. But you guys can also talk shop because you clearly kind of understand each other's businesses a bit. It's
actually amazing. In the way we've evolved, we both started out. He was my manager at the club that I was bartending at. I actually hadn't even started design school yet. So we go back 15 years. I know, it's crazy. And so when we both started, I bust his balls all the time because he was wearing khaki pants and just brutal, like Oxford button-down shirts. And now I adore the way he dresses. He's got a very old guy hipster look, shabby beard. But back in the day, I don't know. We started off together without the big picture in mind. And the way we merged and melded together, where I went to school for design and I worked years and years and not doing anything in the restaurant realm, in hospitality. I was just doing HGTV and houses and that's not design. And then he was moving on to opening his first nightclub. I remember I asked if I could meet with the designer that worked with him, and we just sat and we chatted, and I was like, oh, this would be my dream. I wish I could do this. I would love to do this. And then Brian has 9 restaurants now. And so as he moved on to his second one, that's when he kind of said, listen, do you want to try to take a stab at it? The reality is he didn't want to pay a designer. So I'm no dummy. I get it. So I was like, yeah, I'll take a stab at it. But I got to learn how to design restaurants. And I was doing a show on HGTV called Destination Design. And my producer from that show jumped over to Restaurant Impossible. And he was like, hey, listen, we're looking for designers. And I know that you design a few of your husband's places. Do you think you'd be interested in doing the show with us? And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. And it went great. It was the best marketing, best experience, best dysfunctional family experience I've ever had with Restaurant Impossible. All of it was just an incredible experience.
So you've done so many shows. Destination Design, I remember that one. You did another one that was Vacationers.
Oh, House Hunters on Vacation.
I was always so jealous of all of those people.
It was a dream gig. We would fly to these vacation destinations. I didn't have to build anything. I didn't have to design anything. All I had to do was tour these families around to these gorgeous houses. And they would pick a winner, get an all expense paid vacation. It was literally the dream job.
So speaking of dream jobs, have there ever been any nightmare jobs or crazy, gross, absurd stuff going on the set? I want to know your wildest stories.
God, I have so many. on the Knock First show where it was all teenagers, we moved into, as the show went on, they wanted to sort of elevate the age. And so we had what they called YADs, which was young adults. So they were like 19, 20. And so, but some of them, a lot of them lived in their parents' houses still. So we went into the room and we were clearing it out. And it was some kid out in LA. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like holding it in my hand. And I'm like, what? I just had no idea what it was. And it was a rubber plastic vajayjay. Like,
what? Ooh, like a fleshlight or something?
Yes. Yeah, yep, it was. And I was holding it in my hand. Because we were trying to clear out the room to get it ready to start the remodel. So yeah, that was one really fun experience.
Did he see you unearth his rubber vajayjay, and did he get embarrassed?
He was not in the room, thank goodness.
Oh.
I was like, oh my God, it's just disgusting.
It is a very weird experience going into all those different people's homes, though. I mean, it's just so wild how different the standard of living is for so many different people.
Isn't it? It's kind of cute too. Like you get this little voyeuristic approach. I'm always blown away both with the restaurants and with the houses, how they know you're coming and they don't even clean up sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I feel like an anthropologist, really, because I get to study all these people so up close, you know?
Yeah.
It's amazing how different we are within the home. It really is. And some people, I just do not understand how you can live like that. I just don't get it.
Totally.
And it's not a poverty or a class thing. It's just a disgusting thing.
It is. You're right. It's just I don't care about anything. Like these. Yes. I don't know. I went into one house and I just, being from India, we always take our shoes off when we go into anyone's house. It's just what we do, right? So whenever I would go to scout the houses on Design to Sell, I would take off my shoes at the door. And I'm walking in, I take 5 steps forward. This person has probably never seen a broom or a vacuum in the entire 20 years that they lived there. My feet were coated in dirt and fur and dust balls or whatever all stuck to my feet. So I quickly took 5 steps back, brushed off my feet, put my shoes on, and continued on with the tour. It was so gross.
Clearly, your survival skills are in place. You spotted it quickly, put your shoes back on. Okay, so moving on to your creative process, you have done a lot of interior design for different types of clients, homeowners, restaurants, you name it. I think what might be interesting for our listeners is to hear just the practical differences between designing for TV and designing for an actual client. The designs that we do for TV, there's certain things where the camera angle matters.
Right.
There's always a gun to your head. Like the deadline to get these things done is always crazy in TV. So can you talk to us a little bit about just compare and contrast what it's like to do a regular job, like a real people job and a TV job?
Most definitely. So the reason I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now is because I'm working with the Roots Chris Steakhouse company. They have about 200 locations and they're revamping them all. They're adding new store locations and they want them all to be completely unique of one another. So here I am for a renovation process that we started 6 to 8 months ago. Actually, we started it over a year ago. It got put on hold and then it got picked up again. And now it's finally at the final stages of the design. So can you imagine in a TV world? That just could never happen. So I get antsy because, we're trained now, right? From doing this TV stuff, we're trained to have it done mentally. Our brain is adjusted to fast makeovers, quick turnovers.
So fast. And I just feel like I have this spinning Rolodex in my head. Okay, that won't work. We can't get that. Okay, here's the next thing. Let's do this instead.
Yeah. And I think but you know what? I think it's a really good thing for us as designers now in also I'm using my air quotes in the real world, because we will make quick decisions. You know how the relationship is between designers and builders, contractors. It's not always a love relationship. They don't always love us because they think that we slow down the process. But if they're smart, they'll embrace it and understand that we're there to help them move things along so that their clients can have some help making decisions, and for us being on television, it's elevated even more because we're used to making quick decisions and moving on with it. No, that's not going to work. Okay, here's the answer. Let's go next. But I think that I've gotten to the point now with the broad scope of a restaurant where I know what's going to make an impact and what's not going to make an impact. I know where they should spend their money and where they shouldn't spend their money. And being married to a restaurateur, it's money that comes out of our own bank. So I know firsthand what is money well spent and what is stupid money, you know? And I tell them, I tell my other clients besides my husband, you know, I am the one that's telling them, I don't think you should do that. I think it's going to cost too much money. It's going to be too time consuming. You should, you know, how about if you're willing to cut the curve here a little bit, maybe angle that out straight, it's going to cost a third less and get done a lot quicker, you know? So there's certain things, unless they really love it and they want it 100%, I'll back them up on it.
That sounds like a special skill that you have, is to make decisions quickly or be able to walk into a situation and identify like, okay, this is what can be done. This is what's going to work with budget. And then just making those decisions quickly as they come.
Yeah.
So what about working with your husband? Is that ever like a pain in the ass, or is it always smooth sailing?
Oh God, the first time, the first restaurant almost led to a see you later. I don't think it's going to work out. Our first restaurant was tough because here I was new at this whole design hospitality thing. And he had partners that he had to answer to. And so, you know, their assumption automatically was, you know how it is as a designer, we get blamed for everything, you know? Yeah. So I was like getting pointed at, and to be honest, now in hindsight, looking back, I was new at it. Maybe I was doing a lot of mistakes. I don't know, but it was a tough position for my husband because he was trying to have the backs of the partners, but I'm his wife and he has to have my back too. And there were just challenging moments there where I was like, I actually dragged his ass to therapy. We did 2 therapy sessions. And then I was like, yeah, all right, I think we got enough out of it. Like we both were like, okay, I think we're good, you know, and we were. And ever since then now, like all the restaurants we've done together has just been a great, like a really amazing experience. I mean, he's great. He understands me. I get him. And so it's been good. No complaints.
I have to ask, did you pick up some tools in those 2 therapy sessions or even outside of therapy that you guys still employ to get through those difficult moments when you're on a job together?
So remember, this is a guy that grew up in Boston, and Bostonians are not typically known for being like big, chatty, tell your feelings kind of people, you know.
Sensitive communicators.
Right. And I'm a Bostonian, so I can say it. So he's not a real like dig deep into his emotions or tell me how he's feeling kind of guy. And one of the things that he said was that he felt like he was not appreciated. And I thought, like, it never dawned on me. I don't know. I just didn't occur to me that's how he felt. And so now I think about that a lot. And I make a real distinct effort to make sure he knows that he is appreciated and everything, you know, and vice versa. He does the same for me as well. So that was a bit of an eye opener. But as far as tools go, I just think over the years, we've learned how to communicate better. We talk now. Before it was a little bit like things would just get bottled up inside.
Communication's so important, but I think it's actually pretty typical that people don't feel appreciated and the other person has no idea that the other person's not feeling appreciated. And so I think we could probably fix almost all of the world's problems if everyone just went around letting everyone know how appreciated they are. I say it to the girls in my office. I'm always like, guys, listen, things are going to get tense. They're going to get frustrating sometimes. We're going to have deadlines and we're going to be tired and cranky, or you might not be happy with something I may have said or done, but I'll never know if you don't tell me. And I said, all I want to do is make sure you guys are happy. If we're a good team and we're working together, great, you know, but if something is on your mind and it's bothering you and you don't tell me, I can't help you. Like I can't fix it for you. So we got to keep that line of communication, and it's worked so far. I have an awesome team. Like I love them. You're a television personality and you have a thriving design studio with a great team that you just mentioned. So that sounds pretty successful. What's your personal measuring device? How do you know that you're successful? What feels like success to you? Oh, it's so weird that you're asking that question because I've literally been asking myself that lately because, you know, along the lines of what we were saying earlier, where we're all juggling so much and like, why do we keep doing so much? Like, when is enough enough? I don't know if I know the answer. Like, am I successful? That's a good question. I don't know. Because I guess defining success is really interesting. And if I were to define success, I would say having a family and having balance, like a work-life balance would be successful. And, you know, like we've had our challenges. It's not something I try to keep private or anything. But yeah, you know, we definitely went down that road of IVF numerous times and it didn't work. And yeah, I mean, I actually feel
so fine. I would love it if it all worked out and if everything kind of magically happened. But after a while, you're kind of like, all right, I don't know if this thing's going to work anymore. So it's fine. It's sort of the God's will, I guess, if you're going to, put it into any terms to make it as easy and simple. So yeah, I think that would be nice to have some kind of balance, and not to say that we couldn't go down the route of adoption or anything like that, which is something that I definitely think we think about, but we haven't gotten to that point yet,
I really do feel a kinship with you. I don't have any children either, and it's not necessarily by choice. It's just sort of the way life worked out. I didn't go through IVF, which I'm sure was just its own emotional roller coaster for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But I have had to reconcile myself with, it looks like it's not in the cards for me, at least not biological children.
How do you feel about that?
I went through a period where I was not okay with it at all. And I really had to grieve that. It's still kind of an emotional topic because I have a maternal side that is kind of desperately trying to find an object or an outlet.
Right.
It's interesting that I didn't even think about this when I wrote this question, but it kind of coincided with my reconciling myself with not having biological children. This redefining of success for myself went from, how comfortable I can be, how happy my family can be, how effectively I can raise my children to be pillars of society. It went from that to like, how can I contribute to society in the most meaningful way while I'm here?
Isn't that? It's so interesting, right? But I sit there and I think sometimes, I think I'd be a great mom. And, I wish I did have that opportunity, but because it hasn't been in the cards for me, I'm not entirely giving up yet. I'm 43, turning 44 in February, but I do feel the limit. Like, I do feel like I'm reaching that point where it may not be too late for me, but I've seen women have babies 49, 50 years old, but I don't know if I could handle it at that point, I just feel like I'll be tired. But yeah, you do feel like there's some way that you want to be able to see a legacy live on a little bit and give good to the world in some way.
Yeah, giving good to the world. I mean, so that's kind of where it landed for me. Is I used to think of giving birth as babies, and now I've really channeled it into giving birth to ideas and shepherding them from a place of non-viability to a place of viability and feasibility, and that feels like motherhood to me.
Good. Well, I think that's ultimately where we have to get to, and in being accepting of it. But what's so interesting is that there are so many women, literally 1 out of 3 or 4, I feel, that have undergone some type of fertility issue. It's that we're waiting a little bit longer in life. We're pursuing our careers. It's different. It's a different time. And luckily there's a lot of medical sciences that help with this process, but it is fascinating to me how many people I know. Here's an interesting little scenario. So my little quadrant of best friends, so it's myself and 3 of my girlfriends. We all are in our 40s. And we all have exactly, let's just say we cover the gamut of fertility. So one of my girlfriends, fertile Myrtle, decided she was going to have a baby. They tried, her and her husband tried for a month, got pregnant, great. They now have 3 healthy, beautiful, amazing kids, breathe on each other, and they get pregnant. Then I have another one of my girlfriends who is an executive producer. She's out in LA. She's got a crazy busy life like we do, running around, traveling. And she's not in a relationship. So she finally had the mindset of, look, I'm now 41 and I should freeze my eggs. So she did IVF and froze her eggs. I have the third girlfriend, also same age, like 41, or when she was 40 when she started this, had no, they didn't want to be those girls that they're both single. They didn't want to be those girls that was going to date someone with this intent of, oh my God, we have to move forward. I have to have a kid. You know what I mean? Like they didn't want that pressure. So she did a sperm donor and got pregnant on the first shot. So now she has a beautiful little girl named Grace. And it's a remarkable story. She's single. She did it solo by herself. And then there's me in the fourth part of it where I'm married and we've done IVF 6 times, and it's just not working. So it's kind of a case study, the 4 of us.
It is. I'm glad that you have a network of really tight girlfriends and that you can all talk about this, and you all have the fertility spectrum covered.
Yeah, we definitely do.
And I just think you must be so strong to go through IVF 6 times, because you get your hopes up each time.
Yeah, emotionally it is. It's a tough one emotionally for anyone who's gone through it. You know, you go in through your appointments and things are going so great, and they're telling you, wow, everything looks so good. This is going to be great. And then, you know, you get to the end of it all and it's a failure, you know, or it doesn't work, or you get pregnant and then it doesn't survive, or whatever the situation is. So emotionally it is tough. But I think that if you, like, I live my life on gratitude. It's what gets me through every day. So I think I'm actually grateful. If it didn't follow through, or if it didn't work, it's for a reason. And that reason, I don't know what it is, but maybe it was going to be very difficult, or maybe there would be health issues, or maybe who knows what the issue would have been. So I'm just grateful that if it didn't make it, then there was a reason for it.
Well, that sounds like a really, really healthy way to look at it. And I do think that if you decide to go down the road of adoption or something like that, you'd be an excellent mom.
Why, thank you. Now I've got my little Flinny, my little bulldog. So he's my baby.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
that little
cute.
guy is just, his face is a face only a mother could love.
You've lived your whole life in Boston. Are there things about Boston that you absolutely love, and things that you just would love to change about living there?
I am a hardcore Bostonian. I love the raw nature of people's words. Every other word is fucking this, fucking that. It's literally the most warm, loving conversation. It's like, I fucking love you, man. You know, like it's just, it is Boston. And that's how, I don't know, there's something really special. I have to like hold it back a lot, you know, being in public eye. So I hold it back, but I love the seasonal changes. I love the honesty. I love the architecture. I love that there is such an international, diverse group of people in the city, you know, with all the universities there.
Where can our listeners find you online?
So everything on every social media, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or my website, it's just Taniya Nayak as one word. But my name is spelled totally weird. It's my mother's fault, but she threw an I in there. So it's Taniya. And then Nayak is like kayak with an N. So Nayak. So Taniya Nayak. And that's the same as one word for everything.
Well, you are lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and also for going off on a few of these like kind of emotional, personal tangents.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. You guys are great. And I'm really looking forward to getting together in person at some point soon.
Thank you so much, Taniya.
Bye.
She's a sweetheart, that Taniya Nayak. I like her.
So friendly and so approachable, and just willing to like really talk about anything and be super honest.
You know, she didn't really talk too much about it, but I thought it was interesting that she was the only non-white person in her school growing up, and that she was bullied. Like, her whole attitude about being bullied was one of compassion and strength. The way she kind of painted that picture wasn't of the scars and the wounds that it left on her, but on how it helped her empathize with other people who might be bullied,
right,
and how it shaped her. She has a really positive outlook, which I'm sure serves her very well. But it's also really refreshing. It's really nice.
Yeah, it sounds like she's kind of made peace with it, but also she said she was grateful for it and that she didn't harbor any ill will toward those people because they were children and they weren't exposed to other people.
Right. And that's the thing. Kids are innocent. Kids don't know. Kids are learning and feeling their way through the world. And she did mention, if anyone, she blames the parents. And so do I. Yeah. You gotta let your kids know how to treat people. You know, that's not acceptable. But at the same time, it's unavoidable.
Right.
I mean, it just happens. Some people are mean.
Yeah, kids are the meanest. They're brutal.
They haven't learned to filter themselves yet.
No, they're just brutal. I appreciate her sharing her story about infertility and about measuring success. And I appreciated you also sharing your story. And I didn't chime in because I don't feel like I can relate to that at all, because I easily got pregnant with no problem. But I do have a lot of friends who have had trouble too. So I know how important it is to talk about it, and how important it is that we as women are not measuring our success by whether or not we have children, because that's not all that life is about. And that's not the only thing we're here to give.
I think one of the reasons that was a question I really wanted to ask Taniya is because success is subjective, and there are a lot of people that would say just because you're on TV, you're successful. Mm-hmm. And I know that I certainly didn't feel like just being on TV was a measure of success necessarily. Whether we have children or not, it's not like those who don't have children don't have maternal instincts.
Right.
So then there's those instincts that you have to figure out how to place them and how they best can be used to fulfill your own time here on Earth, but also contribute to society. It sounds to me like she is working her way through that dilemma right now, because, they got their dog and they're considering adoption, and it may or may not work out for her. And she's got her partner, right? So she's got the father of would-be children. So I don't know. I was really interested. I don't think she's figured out how to measure success, but I think it changes for us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I was like, if I get this job, or if I make this much money a year, or if I'm able to buy this car, and, it was all financial. And as I've gotten older, it's like, it's that shit's just not important. I mean, yeah, you need money to live, and it's nice to have a car that like has a heated steering wheel or whatever. But like, seriously, when I look at my life now, I measure it as a whole. Like, am I happy? Am I content? If I died now, would it have been okay? Like, just things like that. And I want my daughter to have a good life, and that my goals have now become goals for her and not just for me.
Right. And I also think it's important that your definition of success keep changing, because what happens when you feel like you are successful?
Right. What's next?
How do you keep challenging yourself? How do you keep growing? And how do you evolve that definition of success so that you are kind of testing the limits of what you're capable of?
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe on Mars. Maybe I can.
Maybe they're going.
Mars. I know. I know. I'm thinking about getting a ride on that thing.
Wait, can you podcast from Mars?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if they have internet there yet. Or maybe they already do. Maybe they're way more advanced.
They've probably already launched a satellite by now.
Yeah. She sort of lightly touched upon the idea that some people who get into the TV business kind of grow giant heads and too big for their britches right away. And it's really mystifying to her. And I could tell right away that she's not one of those people, but it mystifies me as well. I don't understand how people can like sort of change their colors so quickly, but it happens.
One of the things you said that I think immediately was a good way to put it is people who seek approval from others, or who are insecure and need other people to tell them that they're great, seem to latch onto that. And once they get fame, and all these people telling them they're great, then they believe it. And then I think it just gets, I don't know, they just grow these big heads and think that they're, hot shit. And I guess they forget how they felt maybe, or they forget that the reality.
You know what else I think it is? I think either they believe it, or the problem is they don't believe it, and they feel like a fraud, and they need it.
They're overcompensating for their
overcompensating.
Yeah, that could totally be it for sure.
Well, I am pleased that Taniya does not seem to be one of those people at all.
No.
She seems like her center of gravity is very much in place.
Yes,
she's one of the good ones.
I agree. Compassion and gratitude. We could all use a little bit of that these days. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and sign up for our newsletter, read the show notes, and see images of Taniya's work at cleverpodcast.com. You can also connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Clever Podcast. We love hearing from you.
This episode of Clever was edited by Chris Model of Your Studio, with music by Elton11.